Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back. We're glad you're here. We have been in the book of 2 Samuel. Last week, we talked about working together and how Joab worked with his brother in battle. How did you do this last week? Did you work well with those around you? Did you work together? Boys and girls, you'll find even as you get older and you become an adult, that when you have somebody to work with, it makes the work a whole lot more enjoyable. Makes things go smoother and easier as well. Well, we've been talking about how God has prospered David. And up until this point, we haven't seen David do anything wrong. But unfortunately, in chapter 11, we find out he's just as human as you and I are, boys and girls. Okay, Peter's not so human, but he's just as human as you and I are. Yeah, I'm very human. I know, Peter. I sin. Anyways, boys and girls, sometimes we look at this story and we think, how could David have done that? David's a man after God's own heart. How could David have sinned? But boys and girls, how many of us have sinned from the time we got out of our beds this morning? Okay, oftentimes wow, Peter. Peter keeps pointing at me. I'm not so sure about this. Although it's true. Peter has lost my train of thought for me. Anyways, David, he is not perfect. David sins. David does something that to us boys and girls are like, wait, David, you had so much going for you. How could you do this? But boys and girls, where the verse starts, we can read that and go, oh, I do that too. Verse 1 of chapter 11, and it came to pass after the year was expired, at the times when kings go forth to battle. Okay, so where is David supposed to be going based on this verse? Supposed to be going to battle. But the next phrase says that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel. And they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah, but David tarried still at Jerusalem. So the kings go to war. Yeah, he says goodbye. He sends them off to war. He sends his people, but where is he? He's still in Jerusalem. Boys and girls, he didn't go where he was supposed to go. How often do we do that? We're told to go here or do this or that, and we don't. Maybe we have intentions of going later, in 5 more minutes, or let me finish this, and you end up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay, or you're told to go to this location, go to that location. Well, David wasn't where David was supposed to be. And David's going to end up finding himself in temptation in a place that he doesn't, in the end, doesn't want to be. Although at the time, sin is pleasurable for a season. David's in the wrong place. Boys and girls, it started essentially with a little bit of disobedience. He didn't go where he was supposed to go, and it's going to lead to a lot of trouble. Verse 2, and it came to pass in an evening tide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. He sees a lady who's not his wife, not a member of his family, and he thinks, wow, she's beautiful. Boys and girls, if he had been at war, would he have seen her? No, he wouldn't have. He wouldn't have had this temptation if he would have just gone where he was supposed to go. Well, he sees her, like, wow, she's beautiful. So he asks his servants, he's like, hey, do you know who that lady was? Do you know who lives over there? And they tell him, well, this is the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Well, Uriah was off to battle. Uriah was off with Joab fighting for the nation of Israel. And David says, bring her to me. Bring her to the palace. Well, they do bring her. She does come, and David doesn't do what he should do. David does something wrong, and the lady goes back home. This is Bathsheba, and she finds out she's pregnant. Well, boys and girls, her husband's off to war. This could have only happened by David. Wow. And we would look at that as a huge sin. But again, boys and girls, let me point out it was because he wasn't where he was supposed to be. Boys and girls, I hope you'll think about that as you go out throughout this next week. Now, when mom and dad tell you to go to the car, if you're still in your bedroom, then you're not where you're supposed to be. If your teacher tells you to go to the lunchroom and you're still in your classroom and something gets broken and you're not where you're supposed to be, boys and girls, make sure you're where you're supposed to be. Well, word gets to David that Bathsheba is pregnant, and he's like, oh no, what am I going to do? It's going to be found out. People are going to know. What about Uriah? And he's thinking, he's scratching his head. He's like, what can I do about this? Well, in verse number 6, it says, and David sent to Joab saying, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. So he brings him home. Now, he brings him home, boys and girls. Do you think he's going to do the right thing and just tell him, Uriah, I did wrong, and your wife is pregnant? And do you think he's going to make it right, or do you think he's going to try to cover it up? Let's read on and find out, boys and girls. Verse number 7, and when Uriah was come unto him, David demanded of him how Joab did and how the people did and how the war prospered. So he's making small talk. He's like, hey, how's the war? How's Joab? How are things going on? Doesn't really sound like he's admitting anything yet, boys and girls. Verse number 8, and David said to Uriah, go down to thy house and wash thy feet. And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king, which is basically the idea of a present. The king gives him a present, and he says, all right, go home, see your wife, spend time there, enjoy your time at home, and here's a present. Well, what do you think, boys and girls? Is he going to go home? Is he going to see his wife? I mean, she's there. Wouldn't you want to go see? But boys and girls, he doesn't. He doesn't go to his house. In verse number 9, it says, but Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord and went not down to his house. Boys and girls, David had planned on Uriah going home to Bathsheba, the two of them enjoying an evening together, and then nobody would have to find out that the baby was David's. Because Uriah would have been home from the war, he could have explained it that way. But did Uriah go home? He didn't. Uriah didn't go home to be with his wife. So now David's like, oh, great. Now what am I going to do? He didn't go home. I can't use that excuse. I can't cover it up that way. Verse number 10, and when they had told David, saying, Uriah went not down unto his house, David said unto Uriah, camest thou not from thy journey? Why then didst thou not go down unto thine house? He says, you just came home from a long trip. Why not go see your wife? Why not go to your house? Verse 11, and Uriah said unto David, the ark and Israel and Judah abide in tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in the open fields. Shall I then go down into mine house to eat and to drink and to lie with my wife? As thou livest and as thy soul liveth, I will not do this thing. Wow, boys and girls, what a man of character Uriah is. He says, these people are out to battle. The ark is out to war. It's dwelling in a tent. How can I go home to my house when Joab and the other men are at war? Wow, boys and girls, that shows his character, that he was going to do what's right no matter what. It says, how can I enjoy those pleasures when these other people can't? Well, now what's David going to do? We're actually going to leave it right there, and you're going to have to come back. I know, Peter. You're going to have to come back next week to find out is David going to fess up? Is he going to tell Uriah? Or is David going to try to cover it up another way? What is David going to do? Boys and girls, I hope this week you'll be more like Uriah, at least in this story. You'll be more like Uriah, and you'll do what's right, and that you won't be like David and be in the wrong place. We'll look forward to